Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's Countryside with Simon Clark and
Kiri Kermode.
And you've been busy this week?
I certainly have. I caught up with Harry Owens, the president of the Beekeepers Association, and he told me all about their recent conference.
Yeah, and what was going on with that? Because, there's not that many beekeepers, I suppose, in the Isle of Man, but I mean, the crowds that went there from all parts of the UK and Ireland. Absolutely
fantastic. They had a great success with the conference. They had over 200 people attend it, and also they had 29 guest speakers. Incredible.
It is incredible, and of course that still good news. I hope that we have been Varroa free, I think is the name of the
oh, absolutely.
Thing that causes problems, but that's one thing that the Manx beekeepers have been really, really keen on keeping. That standard up, haven't they?
Oh, they certainly have. And Harry was telling me all about the foul brood and the hornets that have just recently been seen in London, and how they've got on to exterminating them as soon as they found that they were there, and certainly keeping very vigilant in case anything arrives here.
Yeah, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the rumours going around, wasn't it, the Manx rumours about maybe there was a bit of shortage of straw on the Isle of Man, with the harvest, and I caught up with northern farmer Will McMillan, who's a contractor and farms a lot of cereal crops up the north of the Isle of Man at Balaclucas, and he really confirmed that news, that the harvest wasn't overly brilliant, and there might be a few concerns later on in the year because it's such a big part of stock people, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
The feed and, of course, the bedding.
The bedding, the winters are so long now, it's vital that we have the right amount of straw for keeping them clean and healthy through the winters, but also the corn as well for fattening cattle and taking over the sheep through till, April, May time now before the grass seems to be coming. It's getting later and later.
And what do you know about the root show? It may have a different meaning between my age and yours.
Oh no, we only know the Meliors really. We don't tend to do the root show down south much, but I heard it was a great success in Andreas.
Yeah, it usually is. A lot of interest in it. Of course, now called, I think, the Andreas Produce Show, and it just gives the chance, like all these shows, for people to show how they can grow vegetables, flowers, anything goes really. And over the years, they've had the straw making of the ropes and things like that out of the bedding. So you get more detail if you sit back and listen to Countryside.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, a couple of weeks ago on Countryside, Kiri and myself were talking about the harvest, weren't we? And the rumours, I suppose, about the shortage of straw maybe on the island.
Yes, I think it's proven to be quite right now after speaking with Will McMillan.
Yes, I went along to Balaclucas Farm where Will McMillan, one of the big cereal growers on the island up the north certainly, and to get his views on how the harvest went, and of course in the middle of drilling right at the moment.
We're sort of planting winter barley and winter wheat just at the moment. It's nice to get on to at this time of year.
Does it get any easier as the years go on? Because I know we talk about on Countryside the hours some farmers do and the early starts, the late finishes for people with the dairy farms and also people with a lot of sheep, with the lambing times. But I suppose it's the same for you. So in crops, you've got to go when you can.
Yeah, that's right. At the end of the day, you're sort of dependent with the weather, really. It's like harvesting or planting, It's if the weather's good, you've got to sort of get on no matter what the time of day, really. But, you can't really do so much when it's raining out in the field, so you're better getting it done while the weather's good,
What sort of harvest has it been?
I would say, it's sort of been average, really. There's not been any great yields grain-wise with a lot of crops. Some better than others, really. I think probably the big thing is maybe the straw. Straw yields are down. I think there could be maybe a problem. Seemed to be going to be a shortage of straw on the island this year.
What's caused that? Has it been the weather when it was sown?
I think it has been a bit of a harsh year, really, with the weather for crops. Like last spring seemed to be so wet and cold for so long, and it was like a late spring coming through. Crops just didn't seem to get away. Even stuff that was planted earlier seemed to just get checked with the weather, and then some stuff was drilled later because the ground was so wet. And seemingly it sort of got away, and then we had another bad spell of weather towards the end of May and most of June that sort of really knocked crops back a lot. So really they just sort of went to went ahead rather than producing too much straw. So, it's resulting in a small crop of straw on a lot of farms.
What about the quality itself? Because obviously pride ourselves here in the Isle of Man of trying to keep some good quality cereals for local use in the flour mills and stuff. Has that been good?
Yeah, like milling wheat wise, I'd say your yields probably on the whole are a little bit down, but on the upside of that, quality is good. And generally, if you have a slightly lower yield, you get a higher protein. So, yeah, on a whole, like the milling wheat has been very good quality this year.
Going back to the straw, you've got a lot of land to do cereal crops on. You got any spare here?
No, I wish I had. No, we haven't. We have had less straw than on previous years. We had probably a few good harvests recently with a lot of straw. So yeah, we have had less bales this year. So no, we haven't got any spare, and it may result in maybe people have to bring in some straw from the UK, possibly.
With the bringing in of straw, obviously some people might have an odd bit still left over, but I mean, surely it can't be a cheap exercise bringing it in.
No, that's it's one of the downsides of being on an island. Obviously, the haulage, coming over on the steam packet, or that is very expensive. Like, I think it's probably possible to buy straw maybe at a reasonable price in the UK, but haulage is going to be very expensive. Will make the straw expensive by the time it lands at home here. Possibly an Arctic maybe £1,200 or more to bring in, which obviously is going to be a lot. It's going to make the straw very expensive.
But obviously, if everybody's crops have been not as good straw wise, you wouldn't think anyone would have any spare, though, would you?
No, well, that's right. I think over here, I would guess straw is going to probably not be much spare around, and there's probably big parts of the UK that are just arable areas with no livestock, and so that there always seems to be plenty of straw about there.
Of course, for some non-farmers listening, the straw so important because obviously in the winter months which are coming up, all the cattle and the cows, dairy cows, are kept indoors in the big sheds, and of course they need some nice fresh stuff to be sleeping on and everything to get the best out of them. Is there any alternatives people can use?
Well, I think obviously straw is the front runner, but I suppose dairy cow wise, there are alternatives for bedding. People use like sawdust or sand maybe in the cubicles, and there are other products like made out of waste paper and other things available. They would have to be shipped in, but whether that's cost effective to import straw, possibly that may be a better option. What option
would farmers, if God forbid we didn't have any straw on the island, we couldn't get any, for instance, what would be the only alternative for dairy farmers and of course beef producers?
If there was no straw at all, I suppose if you couldn't ship any in, I suppose people would maybe end up having to just keep left livestock and maybe try and outwinter some, on some drier ground and get around it that way,
So at the end of the day, some are exporting now, and they'll probably end up more exporting beef animals if that was the case.
Yeah, like it seems there is a quantity of livestock getting exported at present, and yeah, some people might take that opinion if straw's too expensive, that they may want to run less cattle this winter and maybe export some of stores rather than keeping them and finishing them.
So what about you, when you've finished all your planting? What's on? Can you put your feet up then?
No, not really. We're always busy. We've got plenty of jobs on, so we're always there's always something around the corner.
I suppose with the machinery in nowadays, you've got to keep it in fairly tip-top condition as well.
Yeah, that's right. There's always, I suppose, the more machinery you got, there's always some maintenance to do as well in the winter months, in amongst other jobs, and yeah, there's plenty to do.
Northern farmer Will McMillan from Ballaclucas there telling us about how the harvest has been, certainly from his point of view up the north, and he is a little bit concerned about the straw quantities, as well as many farmers will be. And like you mentioned in there, Kerry, the stock people, maybe, they can sort of get rid of a few and, to keep the stocks lower, but the dairy people, got to have it, really.
That's the trouble. A lot of cattle are in-housed for winters now. They seem long winters, so straw is absolutely vital. And also the corn as well. It's very important for people that are fattening cattle for the Isle of Man meat plant, or even just ticking them through the winter. So it's vital that we do get good crops here.
Yeah, we're talking about cattle and dairy cows there, but what about sheep farmers, do many keep them in sheds over the winter nowadays?
No, don't seem to keep them in anymore. Lambing time, a lot of people will bring them in just for that spell of 6 or 8 weeks. But no, they're outdoors. But this last winter, that certainly tested most sheep farmers, that horrendous spell of wet weather. And a few people did fetch them in then to dry them up. So you never know when you need, the feed and the bedding for such winters like that.
Keep them nice and cosy and
Absolutely.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Well, Kiri, you've been educated this week on the birds and the bees. Not so much the birds, but the bees, because you caught up with a very, very experienced man in the world of beekeeping.
I certainly did. They've held a recent conference on the Isle of Man for BIBA, which is the Bee Improvement Association, and over 200 members came over to the island to visit and to go around the different hives, and also have 29 lecturers came. I caught up with Harry Owens to see how that conference went.
BIBA is the organisation now called the Bee Improvement and Bee Breeders Association, which has been going since about 1964, and it's gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're getting more expertise in bee breeding, which is the aim and object of it all. Yeah. And what they're trying to do is bring the original bee back into the British Isles instead of all the mongrels that are brought in. But we're fortunate, as you're well aware of, in the Isle of Man, we have no imports whatsoever since before 87. And by that, our bees have kind of evolved as the indigenous bee, and they're fine. And that's why the reason why BIBA came back again. They were here in 73. And was instrumental in the idea that the indigenous bee, through the director of the BIBA, B. Wolf Cooper in those days, who's now long gone. And from there on, they've kept up the routine of bee improving the native bee. And we're lucky we've got the native bee. So that's why they homed in on us again from all these years back.
And this conference, Harry, went really, really well, I hear.
Absolutely wonderful. I must say that the government-wise, the Minister Skelly and Ronan's help was outstanding. They were so helpful to us in getting us off the ground. Okay, I mean, they're thinking what they're trying to improve the wealth of the island by virtue of introducing people to the island, and they did it exceedingly well, in my opinion. Plus the fact, the wealth of speakers we had.
And one in particular was your old friend Clive de Brain.
Clive de Brain, who I saw in 1973 when it was first held here, and also Robert Munn, who actually came specially again to the Isle of Man after all these years. And we were playing with bees, and then putting queens on air balloons, met balloons, and flying them up in the air on the end of fishing rods. And but we didn't do it this year.
But those weren't just, a fun and games. They were actually real, projects you were doing back then.
We were trying to prove a point, and it actually proved it by virtue of the fact we got Virgin Queen on a piece of cotton from my trousers, actually, because we hadn't got anything. We tied it to the set of balloons, used my spinning rod, let the line out, and the balloon went up in the air, and then we got kites of the drones assembling round the Queen and mating with it. And this was on the Rowney Golf Course in 1973, and it was perfect. It achieved something which was quite unique in beekeeping history in those days, because it was at the embryo stage of trying to breed queens and trying to discover which way to do it. And as it's happened now, it's much more finite now. It's easy peasy, one could term it, as compared to then. Plus the fact, at the same time, I set up a mating apiary up on the Sound Farm in Cregnish, in a little boggy patch there, and I did likewise on the calf. And what they had some some stupid idea that the bees wouldn't cross salinated water to mate. We soon proved that wrong.
Oh, wow, what a great experiment. But he spoke very, very highly of the Manx bee. She's a very special one.
Yeah, we are. Unique, actually, by virtue of the fact that it's just happened that we isolated ourselves, and we've been fortunate that nobody's brought bees in. And the bees have just, over the 30-odd years, have evolved as the native bee again. And that's what they really are made up with it. We do morphometry, where we measure the wings and angles of the veins in the wings, and you can actually form a graph on it. It'll prove whether the bees are native or not. And they can actually tell the ancestry of, sort of a mongrel bee or anything like that. You can actually see where they come from in the graph.
Well, these bees, not only are they very special, but they're also disease-free. Now, the three main diseases you were telling me earlier, Harry, were the varroa mite, the foul brood, and also the hornet. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Foul brood is a disease, a bacterial disease that affects the larvae of the bees during their sort of gestation period, from a grub into the chrysalis stage, to explain it more to non-beekeepers. And what happens is the bacteria attacks the bee, the larvae I should say, and it destroys it, and it ends up in a foul, smelly mess. And there's two sorts, American and European foul brood, and they're both virulent, and you have to eradicate it by virtue of destroying the bees and clearing everything out. That is really bad news. And one of the things I like to always say if I'm talking about bees, and particularly about foul brood, is anybody that buys honey, irrespective of where they buy it from, Isle of Man or European stuff or American or whatever, if they have the containers that they've had the honey in, and they wash it thoroughly and everything, and then dispose of it, it's fine. But if they don't wash it and they leave it hanging around, bees can actually gravitate to it, extract whatever tiny substance of honey is in it, take it into the hive, and if it's got the bacteria, it starts off foul brood, and that it absolutely destroys the colonies. And you would have to really cull a heck of a lot of colonies to eradicate it again. Now, the varroa mite is a pest that came from the Far East. It's called Varroa destructor. There's 5 subspecies of it, and this is one of 2 of the 5 that is virulent and destructive again. What it does is it acts like a flea. In other words, it sucks the blood of the bee, but it goes into the cell of a bee just before it's made. It goes into the sort of chrysalis stage. This one varroa mite goes in and lays a male egg and 3, maybe 4 female eggs. It's covered up in its chrysalis stage, so it's enclosed within it. The male hatches out, the first one, then it mates with all the female eggs that hatch out into varroa mite. And when the actual bee emerges from that cell, it will, if the virus is present, which it usually is, come out without any wings. Or one other virus. There's 15 different viruses can be affected, and the varroa mite makes a benign virus virulent. So if once it starts in the system, it wipes the bees fly, so they just die.
Oh my word, it's absolutely
and
awful.
what about the hornet?
Yes.
Now the hornet is being introduced into France, etc., and it's gradually spreading through Europe. And this particular insect is just like a big wasp. But our bees haven't got the mechanism to deal with it, whereas where it originates from, the bees over there, the hornet goes, it tries to get into the hive, they'll attack it and jump on it and boil it virtually by surrounding it completely. Our bees haven't got that, the means of doing that as yet. It might evolve in a long, long time to go, but and those hornets, they will kill the whole colony off. The 3 or 4 hornets will go in, and the bees have got no mechanism. They'll sting the bees, kill them off, rob all the larvae to feed their own larvae, and then they'll take all the honey and destroy the hive completely.
Oh my
in a short
word.
time.
So it's so important that we keep vigilant and make sure that, especially on the Isle of Man, the Manx bee is very special. It really is.
We're unique within the world, one could term it as.
That was Harry Owens, the president of the Isle of Man beekeepers.
200 people came to the island, as well as the locals as well.
I assume so, but it really was a great turnout. They're absolutely delighted with the success. But they had lots of support from the local people, the ministers, and also the governor, which was nice to see them attending and just seeing how good our bees are. They're free from all these diseases and they're able to export them to other countries, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, it's a bit unique. And when you see the popularity of it, when you go to the shows that's happening and you've got the beehive that you can see into, isn't it?
Oh, this is it.
And I think it gives people a lot more confidence that, they're just getting on with their daily business, aren't they?
This is it. But they're so important for pollination of all these crops and plants, and they've got a vital role. And like Harry was telling me that things would be totally different without them.
Yeah, they would indeed. Let's keep the bees here on the Isle of Man and the Manx honey. Well, there was Manx honey on display in Andreas last week at the Andreas Produce Show, but Northerners, of course, and people who go to it regularly will still refer to it probably as the Root Show. Well, I went along to see how the vegetables and all the chutneys and jams and all sorts of bizarre things. I thought, how has the standard been this year? Noel Kringles, good to see you up this end of the island.
I'm up this island very regularly, which is nothing new. And anyway, it's down north.
Ah, well, it's different from that side, though, isn't it? It's these sort of things. It's so glad that they keep going, isn't it?
Absolutely, and congratulations to all those that have entered the flowers, the vegetables, the jams, the cakes. Well done. Must remember that everything that's been put on show is first prize in somebody's kitchen.
Yes.
They can't all be winners, so well done to everybody, and well done to the committee for keeping the Andreas Produce Show going.
Yeah.
It is actually the whole thing of these community events is the backbone of our island.
Roger Phillips Clark of Tynwald.
Yes.
This is an experience for you today.
It is indeed. It's been fantastic. My wife and I were very honoured to be asked to open the show. I was very intrigued to find out what a lanket was, because where I come from it's not a word that is I know, and I looked it up in the dictionary and I couldn't find it. So it's really rewarding to find out what they are and actually see them made now. And for those people who might not know what a lanket is, it's a bit of rope that you use to hobble a sheep in order, if it's a leader of a flock, to restrain it from wandering too far. They're illegal now, but old ways die hard here, and there's a little competition among some of the people here to see how fast they can make a good lanket. It's very interesting to see, very ingenious, and I look forward to practicing when I get home.
The whole show itself, the Andreas Produce Show,
Yes.
or as us Northerners know it, the Root
Yes.
Show, it's just full of everything really, isn't it, for the country?
It's absolutely wonderful. I mean, just for it to be solemn for a moment, it's the kind of community spirit that keeps these things going is a real asset for the island. It's what makes us strong. My wife and I have been to see the Fur and Feather Flow show here as well, because we keep chickens, so we were quite interested in that.
Did you enter any?
No, we didn't enter any of our birds, who are pets more than any. They're not show animals, I'm afraid. And we were going to enter some eggs in this show, but they're sort of, with the closing winter coming on, they're not laying quite as fast as they have done in the last few weeks. So Sarah couldn't get 6 eggs to look the same, so she didn't put any in this year. But next year we will. And we will put some honey in, and Sarah did enter some lemon curd this year, which didn't get anywhere, but nonetheless, it's great, it's fantastic, and it's a very high standard of exhibition.
Well, the star of the show, the Andreas Produce Show, Justine Mullen, congratulations, you've come away with the big one.
Thank you.
Now, tapestries, cross stitches. I think it's a cross stitch, isn't it?
It is a cross stitch, yeah.
A forest scene with the autumn colours. Where did you get that idea from, or has it come from a picture?
It's come from a picture from a kit, and I just liked it and thought I'd do all different seasons. So this is the first of 4 that will be coming. So next year I'll probably do spring. Yeah, and see if I can win again.
Well, you never know. It must be such an honour, because there's loads of vegetables, flowers, jams, everything imaginable at one of these shows. The judges have picked your one out, so it must be rewarding.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think everybody here's got a talent, whether it's growing vegetables, which I did have a go last year at and failed miserably, and I can bake the odd cake, and of course flower arranging is something that I leave to Robinsons to do. So yeah, I think everybody's got a talent, and it's nice that they've seen mine as a talent that's worthy of the best in show.
And how long did it take you to do? A day or two?
Yeah, just a few. It's hard to put into hours, but I would imagine you're probably looking around 300 hours work.
Really? So
Yeah.
months and months of work?
Yeah, months. I sit with the television on, do some sewing, and probably put in some nights I can put up to about 3 hours.
Once if you make a mistake, can you correct it?
Yeah.
All right.
And sometimes you can hide it.
Put a different colour in.
So I try and hide it. Yeah.
Well, you've done well. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well, David Rue, you're the Vice Chair of the Andreas Produce Show Committee. You've got the honour of talking to us today and telling us what a success this show's been.
Yes, it has. I mean, a lot of people here this evening. Yeah, and the produce has been excellent as well. The entries have been very good. The confectionery and the preserves, absolutely excellent. Probably the only thing that's slightly down, and it's been a trend over the last few years, is the farm entries are down. The potatoes and the root section, where the root show really got its name from. It was basically an agricultural show, but that's maybe just a sign of the times.
Very older generation weaving ropes out of straw, the agains and things.
Yeah.
And then you've got the very lowest classes of Andrews School up on the wall with crafts, isn't it? So such a diverse thing.
Yeah. I was just talking to someone today. I've been coming here since I was at Andrews School 5 and putting entries up on that wall. And I mean,
still trying to win, David, huh?
Yeah. I probably wouldn't win, to be honest. Their writing's probably way better than mine.
Such a really stalwart event of Andrews, isn't it?
It is. As I said, I've been coming down here, since I was 5, and that's really why I've got involved with it, trying to keep events like this going. Because I would urge younger people to try and get involved as well, because without younger people getting involved, there is a danger that events like this in the community will stop. It takes young people to become interested.
Well, there's some of the people involved in the Andreas Produce Show, or the Root Show, which even when I was growing up, that big parish hall in Andreas, where it's always been held and still held there, and the popularity of it for the people interested in growing vegetables in particular is still there. But a lot of the schools and youth getting involved in it now, and they're going to keep it going, I would hope. You never been to it?
Not the Andreas one. I went to the Sulby one. I was absolutely mesmerised by the vegetable items they made into little characters. They had different fruits and vegetables all stuck together with
Mr. Potato Head.
I think the best one I've seen was a penguin.
Really?
It was really well done. Out of an aubergine and different carvings of marrow and things. Oh, it's fantastic. It was.
Wonder. Do wonders with marrows and cucumbers, though, can't they?
Oh, they certainly can.
Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
There we are. Bees, hay, wheat and barley, and anything from the Andreas Produce Show on this week's Countryside. We'll be back, Kerry, next week with more. So until then, from me, Simon Clark.
And me, Kerry Kermit.
We'll see you next week. Ta-da.
Bye-bye.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.